I'm happy to have the opportunity to greet you this way. It's maybe the next best thing to being in China myself. I was once there in 1980, and I had a wonderful time, and I was hoping that I would someday get back, but this is, as I say, the next best thing. I should tell you a little bit about myself. I trained first as an artist and then as an art historian. As an artist, my training included photography, how to make pictures, although I never really did make them, except for school purposes. But I did learn all the darkroom techniques, and eventually I had to learn all the old techniques as well in order to write about them. As part of my art historical training, I came across many photographers. I was married to a photographer, I should say, so nothing was strange about the practice to me. And when I began to look at photographs more and more, I realized that it would be wonderful to look into the history of how this technique, this means of representation, this means of expression, began in the mid-1800s. And because I was also teaching courses on the history of photography, I was asked to write something that could be used as a textbook, as a compendium of historical information, let's say. And the final result of that was a book called A World History of Photography. Most of the previous histories had concerned themselves with England, France, and the United States, with maybe a sort of side look briefly at what was happening in Germany. But the rest of the world got left out, and so I believe that photography, which is a worldwide phenomena, a worldwide way of expressing oneself, should cover a much wider latitude. The book, which appeared first in 1984, has been translated into a number of languages: French, Japanese, Polish, and now I understand it will be available in Chinese, which gives me great satisfaction. I would like to compliment Chinese photographers on the very interesting work that has come out of China in the years since I was there. I was there in 1980 to accompany an exhibition of the work of an American photographer named Louis Hine, which was to travel around China, starting in Beijing. I do have one book that shows the kind of photography that was done in China from about 1912 to 1950, and the pictures are mainly repertorial, as you can see, although some of them have a certain sense of atmosphere. Most of them are just pictures of the main characters and various episodes in Chinese history, without a great deal of attention to either the emotional resonance of the picture or the aesthetic qualities of the picture. What interests me is that the Chinese photographers are making great strides in addressing some of the social issues through photography, which has a wonderful tradition in the United States, because the exhibition that was brought to China in 1980 was the work of a photographer named Louis Hine, who spent his entire career photographing working people who were the basis for the great production in the United States, and the way the United States became so powerful and rich, was through the work of ordinary people. And at the time I was in China with the Hein exhibition, there were almost, there were no photographers that I was shown or knew about then that were doing the same thing. And to find photographers now who address this kind of social scene is really wonderful. For instance, I have a book that talks about schooling in the provinces in China, and the photographs are, one, very interesting visually. That is, they're not just children lined up. They don't just report on the situation in the provinces and out in the countryside, where children have to sometimes travel great distances to go to school. The fact that the photographs send that message to the viewer, not in a way that'll bore them or not evoke a response, but in a way that'll make the problem more felt, I think is very important. And for that, I think Chinese photography has come really into modern times in a very good way. I'm delighted that the China Photographic Publishing House has chosen to publish this book, because while the Chinese have put out a book of historic photographs of China, this is a world history, and I think Chinese photographers will gain a great deal of knowledge from having a book of this sort. It'll tell them about how photography developed in the Western world and in the Eastern world and around the world, actually, and give them a sense of the ongoing changes so that they can fit themselves into this history. It has some 800 illustrations and gives a sense of the way photography changed throughout the years, which I think Chinese photographers, being so sophisticated now, will find very interesting.